Ready to go? You're good. Fantastic. Okay, everybody, headphones on. Hopefully we get a bit bigger audience come in. So, okay, let's go. So, thank you all for coming at the end of today. Really appreciate it. Today we're going to be talking about something that's very, very dear to my heart. VMware and the future of VMware-based workloads. I actually spent 10 years of my working career, 33 years in IT at VMware. Awesome technology, groundbreaking, solved a problem back in the 2000s around consolidating workloads on x86 servers, and to that point it's created a massive number of virtual machines that are still physically running on people's on-premise environments, hosting VMware with Windows workloads, Linux workloads, container workloads. Gartner estimates that 90% of Microsoft workloads run on VMware on-premise. But there's been some changes. The acquisition of Broadcom by VMware has made customers make some thoughts and decisions about their future VMware strategy. So today I'm going to be talking you through all the VMware pathways that AWS offers, all the training programs, all the services, and any other areas of coverage that we've got, including some of our Gen AI products around VMware as well. My name is Martin Storey. I look after the worldwide specialist organization here in EMEA, and I look after the solution architecture team focused on infrastructure migration and modernization. So I just wanted to take a really quick poll. I know we've got a medium-sized audience here. Who at the moment have got VMware workloads on-prem and are interested in looking at potential other options around your VMware strategy? Great, okay, thank you for that. Really appreciate your response. So let's talk about a couple of numbers here, a couple of signals we're seeing from the industry out in the analyst firms. So Gartner, for instance, have done a poll recently that 74% of customers are evaluating their VMware strategy. And there's many, many options out there. There's not one size that fits all, and it's really, really important to see what all those options are. So that's one signal. The second signal is that 95% of new net digital workloads, customers plan to build them on cloud-native infrastructures. So that creates a bit of a trigger point for customers to look at other options for the VMware strategy and take a view about what's the art of the possible. So what we're also seeing is that customers fit into typically two buckets. So these two buckets are migrate and optimize some of those workloads, and some of them have transforming the workloads. And it all depends on what the priorities and the speed of requirements are. The speed of requirements are, so for example, if some customers are interested in doing rapid DC exits, we're seeing that a lot. So they don't want to get involved in doing large tech hardware refreshes, refreshing all their storage infrastructure, all their networking infrastructure. So their priority is get it out of the data center and put it somewhere else. Other customers have a longer term horizon. And that's when you're starting to look at potential modernization opportunities, moving from monolithic workloads to microservices architectures. So that's what we see. Customers are in two different buckets. So what I'm going to take you through now is all the migration pathways that we offer, not only what we offer, but what also our partners offer as well. So this line here is a very high level view of what the AWS offerings are. So what I'm going to be doing is going to be walking you through each one of these options and diving deep into them. So let's start off at the beginning. Let's start off at the rehost. So there is a platform that's currently in preview called Amazon Elastic VMware Service. That's currently in preview. I'm going to dive deep into some of these options in a second. And this is where you're rehosting your VMware workload on-prem directly into EVS. We still have a solution called VMware Cloud on AWS, still available to be purchased via Broadcom. It's similar to that but different, and I'll cover sort of some of the differences in that in a second. The other options are to re-platform to EC2. So removing the VMware component and re-hosting your VMware virtual machines on a Windows or a Linux virtual machine, and there's some pathways for that and some options for that. We've been migrating VMware virtual machines to EC2 since 2008, so we've got a lot of experience and exposure for doing that. We do migrate thousands and thousands of VMs per month to EC2. The other options are more around the application modernization space. So Amazon ECS and EKS, so if you want to containerize your monolithic workloads and retransform them into new containerized solutions, the options are there to move towards container-based solutions. Again, we have offerings for that. Alternatively, you may want to re-platform some of your databases, for instance, from a SQL or an Oracle or whatever virtual machine you're running, a Windows or a Linux virtual machine, into a managed database. So Amazon RDS has many different offerings for Oracle and SQL that allow you to migrate your virtual machine directly to a native database solution in RDS. That inherently has elasticity, patching, and auto-scaling built into the infrastructure. That's part of the RDS mantra. The other part, you may want to move some of your file services to FSX. You may want to move some of your file options to S3. Again, these are some options to move away into managed-based solutions. And then finally, down the other end of the scale, when you're really sort of pushing the envelope for migration and modernization, is refactoring some of those applications into serverless or Lambda-based functions. Internally, we have application modernization labs that allow you to take a working monolithic system, take it through the application modernization lab experience, and drive some output and drive some input through to these new modern refactored applications. So these are the high-level pathways available. This next one shows in a little bit more detail. We've talked about the stack there, and as you move up the stack, your ROI increases because you're moving into a much more agile-based, cloud-native-based way. But it's not just about that stack that we've talked about, from re-hosting to re-platforming to refactoring. There are other options. I don't know who was on the last session, but there was an Outpost session just a second ago, just before mine. So the options are for customers who have latency or data residency issues. The options are to run your VMware workloads on an Outpost solution in a local zone area or on-prem. So finally, the other area I want to cover off is our partner offerings, Nutanix and Red Hat ROSA. So Nutanix NC2, there's been a great deal of activity with that company. And we've worked very closely with them on some very large opportunities. So Nutanix have a solution called NC2. It's effectively their Nutanix on-prem solution running in a software-based environment, running on EC2 hardware. So if you're a Nutanix customer and you want to directly move workloads from on-prem Nutanix to NC2, there's a product they have called Move, which allows you to move the virtual machines from A to B, but you can also transform the VMware virtual machines directly via Move over to a Nutanix NC2 option. So again, customers are interested in Nutanix NC2, another offering out there in the market. And the other additional feature that Nutanix has is it allows layer 2 stretch as well. So you don't have to re-IP your VMs from on-premise over to NC2. The other option is ROSA. So Red Hat OpenShift on AWS. Some customers are very tied and wedded to Red Hat solutions. So a lot of customers are running Red Hat virtualization on-prem, and they're interested in moving Red Hat solutions that are running on VMware directly over to ROSA. So there's another option there for running your Red Hat workloads over to ROSA. So that is our stack, that is our technology stack. So I'm going to dive into a couple of these options here so we can talk about it. So let's dive into EVS. So EVS is in preview at the moment. We're not a million miles away from GA. I can't give you the GA date. These things sometimes change. But EVS, I'm really, really excited about this. EVS is running your VMware stack, your VMware Cloud Foundation Stack VCF directly on EC2 bare metal, as it would do on-prem, and you would lift and shift those virtual machines from data center A to data center B. It's cool stuff. I mean, it's zero downtime migration, really quick migration, no change to the running operation of the environment, no change in the skill sets required to maintain them. It's got a very, very solid use case, this. So I'm going to dive into a little bit more about this in a second. So this diagram here shows diagrammatically you have your on-prem VCF solution running vSphere, NSX, and vSAN. On the right-hand side, you're running your EVS environment within one of the regions. We'll be launching, when we go GA, to a certain set of regions, 2 in the EMEA region, a couple in the Americas, and a couple in APAC. And we'll be rolling out new regions as we go further down the GA. So EVS has, as I say, the full VCF stack. You're running a VMware SDDC within a VPC, and that's critical. That's very, very different to the way it was with VMC. And effectively, you log in via your normal AWS login account, you go into the services that are on offer, you select EVS, you select a region, you select the node type, and you deploy. And then you've got access to your VMware environment, all the networking pre-built, ready for you to do your migration from your on-prem data center to it's a very quick process. Obviously, when you're in a region, you've also got access to all of the other AWS services. So say you've moved X amount of VMware VMs from on-prem and all the data associated with that, you can really start to rapidly use some of the additional services like AI/ML services, or maybe you wanted to do some of those initial migrations from databases running in VMs over to RDS. The art of the possible is there once you are in a VPC and you've moved that VMware workload over. The features in EVS, very quickly, are it's obviously got console access, full AWS console access, CLI access to it. You have full admin access to ESX, where you would not have had that with VMC, and it's exactly the same as what it is on-prem for you. So you can do additional added things where certain pieces of software are only capable to run when you've got full admin access. It runs on bare metal, so it runs on EC2 bare metal. We'll launch with one particular node type, and I'll go into that in a second. It's i4i, the dedicated host to you. The flexibility for the consumption model, it'll be on-demand 1-year contracts or 3-year contracts, and you bring your own license. So you purchase your VCF software from Broadcom, and you have the choice to run the VCF license on-prem or choice to run it in EVS. So that's the consumption. It will use standard VCF. Current version is 5.2.1. Am I right, Mr. VMware? Thank you very much. There's a VMware guy down here, a friend of mine. And the options are to either manage it yourself or have a partner to manage it with you. We're going to be launching with a number of set partners who are going to go to market with us to manage and maintain the EVS solution. So they're the EVS features. Compute, very quickly, i4i.metal. We found i4i.metal that we ran in the VMC environment as a solid replacement for something we had called an i3. And all our customers that are running on i3 are now running on i4. It's a solid, solid server. Runs Intel Xeon Ice Lake, 128 vCPUs, 64 physical cores, so a pretty beefy box. 1 terabyte of RAM, 30 terabytes of NVMe storage, 2 ENIs, and it's a solid server. You typically get around about 100, 120 virtual machines, depending on the workload type. The cluster size on GA will be 4 minimum servers on a cluster, 16 maximum. So that's for the compute side. Storage, as I say, it's using VCF, so it's going to be facilitated by vSAN. Solid software. I remember when vSAN was originally developed at VMware. It's gone through many iterations now. It's a very, very solid piece of software that supports the collection of all those hosts together to create a virtual SAN. So imagine you've got 30 terabytes running in each server. You've got a minimum of 4 servers. That's 120 terabytes of physical storage in there. We will also support, not at GA, although possibly, don't know yet, we'll find out from the services team, is We'll support offloading storage for FSXN, which we did in VMC. So if you wanted to offload some of the storage to FSXN, and we are working with other storage manufacturers as well. Just to also reiterate with regards to the node type i4i I mentioned before, we are aiming to certify all the EC2 bare metal instances in our fleet. So that's a lot. We're talking about 25 in our fleet. These are Intel boxes. This will give the customer the option to choose a server that may have more CPU, less memory, or require more memory, or require more internal disk. The options are going to be there. So i4i is just the start. So connectivity, this is really pretty simple. I mean, this is the same in VMC land as it is in VMC land. So you have your corporate data center, you have your region, you have your EVS cluster, it sits in a customer VPC, and you direct connect or you VPN through. You extend that layer 2 network. You move your VMs from on-prem over to EVS. It uses the awesome technology called HCX. HCX allows you to move either hot, cold VMs, migrate from A to B, underlying using storage vMotion and vMotion to do that migration. It will copy the objects within your on-prem data center over to EVS. It literally is the tool for doing hybrid cloud extension. So that's EVS. There's a lot more depth to that. Come speak to me after if you want to. Let's talk about replatforming now. So moving from VMware to VMware, we've covered that. Now we're moving from VMware to EC2. So did I mention we've been moving VMs since 2008 from VMware to EC2? I'll say that a few times throughout this. There's thousands, millions of VMs running on EC2. Of which many of them came from VMware. So EC2, many people I'm sure have deployed some VMs in EC2 over the time, so obviously supports Linux, Windows, Mac OSs, also supports container-based solutions as well, and interestingly obviously supports ARM and x86. Not a lot of people know that it supports ARM. Well yes, we do support ARM. We support ARM in the form of Graviton. Graviton Compute is a very interesting way to rehost your Linux virtual machines. It's got the lowest price performance for an EC2 host and the lowest the lowest carbon footprint for deploying your Linux virtual machines. So if you assess your Linux estate, work out whether it can run on a Graviton. That's definitely quite an interesting commercial view if you want to run it on Graviton. So obviously all the options here in EC2 land or on-demand, spot instance, reserved instance, you've got all the options there that you typically have to purchase your instances. Now, understanding where you want to go from your VMware environment to your EC2 environment, you have to assess. You have to understand what your VMware workloads look like, how many vCPUs are they running, how much RAM are they running, what's the peak usage of those VMs. That's all part of the assessment phase, and I'll be covering that off to understand what's the right size of running a VM on EC2, and that's really critical. Before I talk about that, I want to talk about Gen AI. So obviously Gen AI is a very impactful technology, as we all understand. There are a number of Gen AI solutions available now that are currently in place for doing migrations from VMware to EC2 using Gen AI. We have a suite called Amazon Q Transformation. There's three main areas, three main solutions. There is VMware, Amazon Q Transformation for VMware, Amazon Q Transformation for .NET, for migrating and modernizing .NET solutions, and Amazon Q Transform for mainframe. I'm going to focus on VMware here. I'm really excited about this. This is really an agentic automation approach to doing your migration from on-prem VMware to EC2. So let's just kind of dive into a little bit about that now. So we've built some of the gnarly things about moving from VMware to EC2 is the networking. So the networking in VMware is based typically around either vSwitch technology or NSX technology. Now, moving a vSwitch solution or an NSX solution over to a VPC can be quite gnarly, can be quite challenging. So we've built some foundational models that are VMware aware, injects all the data from the NSX manager, allows it to view it and map it to a VPC. So all the subnets and all the requirements to build that VMware solution in a VPC are automated using Amazon Q transformation. But you can't leave too much automation in Amazon Q, so there's obviously the ability to do some human intervention to allow you to control what you can and you can't migrate. It's got a UI, but it's also got an IDE to allow you to manually connect through. So it's an agentic AI solution that allowed you to migrate your VMware to EC2. This is what the stages look like. There's a QR code in a minute. I would like you to take a shot of it where you can go and run a click-through demo to have a good feel of it and then actually have a chance to actually play with it. So the first phase of Amazon Q for VMware transformation is an inventory discovery. So you can inject an RV tool, so VMware RV tools directly into this, or you can do an application discovery, because you need to understand the interconnection of all the VMs and how the apps all work together to allow you to do your migration, your wave planning. So this is the first phase as you walk through the agentic approach, all using natural language. Then it will do the network conversion and map the network conversion to a VPC. Then it will build the wave planning piece for you to do the migration plans from VMware to EC2. And finally, it will do the execution. We're getting really, really good feedback from customers at the moment who've tried this, who've pushed this through pilots, and we get some really, really strong push on this. So this QR code will allow you to see the click-through demo, see the UI, get an appreciation of it. So that's Amazon Q Transform for VMware. We're really excited about that. So now let's talk about the modernization. But I'm just going to touch on this, and there have been many sessions here today on the modernization side, but I talk to customers who are not just interested in doing lift and shift. They're really interested in taking their monolithic applications around to a newer paradigm. So when we look at what customers get as they drive that modernization journey, is they get a move towards much more cloud-native architectures. As you start to move towards that, your total operating cost decreases and your ability to have agile and innovation increases. But we're fully aware that virtual machines that are running critical applications, some of them bound to ISVs, may not have the ability to go and migrate to a cloud-native architecture, but there are a lot of opportunities to do cloud-native architectures. So what we typically tend to see is some will stay in a VM-based environment, maybe some may stay on EVS, some will move to EC2, and some will modernize and migrate over to containers or managed solutions. So we all need to fully assess what the environment looks like to make a decision on where you want to go. I've always said this, not one size fits all. You can't move everything to one thing and that's going to sort itself. If you're on a journey of modernization, you need to have yourself a 2, 3, 4 year timeline to what you need to do. Once you're in there and you've made some decisions, I've already mentioned that once you're in, you've moved your VMware workload over to a VPC, you've got access to all these tools that are available. So AI, ML, analytics, moving over to storage solutions, moving over to managed base data, 200 plus services to take advantage of your data and all your applications that were once running on VMware. So that's the tech piece out of it. I just want to talk to you about the programs and incentives that we have with partners and things around how we get you from A to B. Or A to Z, actually, let me say that right. So let's talk about tools. We've already covered off Amazon Q transformation for VMware. That's kind of covered. The other areas some of you may already be familiar with, AWS Application Migration Service or Migration Hub and Migration Journeys or any ISV tools. So these are the areas for Migration Service, which I'll cover off how this works. This is a tool that we've used for years for moving VMs from VMware over to EC2. It allows you to inject changes to the VMs as you're moving from VMware to EC2 that make it specific to run in a region or specific to run in a VPC. So this is how MGN works. You obviously have your on-prem VMware solution that's running your vCenter and your VMs on-prem. You'll run a VM on vCenter or within the actual VM guest itself. It's connected directly to the application migration service. It will replicate the VMs from on-prem to a staging area of lightweight EC2 VMs connected to EBS volumes, copy all the data from on-prem to the staging area over your direct connect or your VPN, and when you're ready and when all the data's copied over and all that VPC networking is prepped and ready to go, it will cut over. It will shut down the system over on the on-prem. You've got a fully migrated virtual machine that's now running on a pre-built AMI that you're running on Windows or Linux, all ready to go, and you're now running on EC2. That's how MGN works. It's used by our partners, our customers, and our professional services organisation for many years. The other area is Migration Hub that you can use in conjunction with MGN. So a lot of customers see this as your shared workspace between teams. When you're doing a migration, it's just not one person doing a migration. There is a project manager, there is execution at the application infrastructure layer. This is a shared workspace. It's a lovely web interface that allows you to build your journey. So if you think about assessing, planning, and then execution of the migration hub has all these wave plans in there. In fact, there are a number of templates that when you sign into Migration Hub, it already has some pre-built VMware to EC2 migrations in there. It already has templates for migrating from SAP on-prem to SAP RISE. There's all sorts of migration templates built in there. There are obviously lots of steps required to take you through a migration. This already starts you on a journey. It's free to use to store the discovery information, to do the wave planning, and actually see the progress of a migration. But you're obviously charged for doing the migration tool. But it's a great tool. Do a Google for it. Have a look for a Migration Hub. You can log in with your account, and you can actually sort of build your own little wave plan directly in there. That's quite interesting. The other side is our ISV tools. Lots of customers work with our ISVs as part of their migration mechanisms. They've got some amazing tool sets that we work with them. A lot of these ISVs we can provide free of charge or heavily subsidized through our MAP program. And I'll go into our MAP program at the end of this presentation. These ISVs all provide customers with the opportunity to choose specific areas of migration. So for example, if I can't go for every single one, but car software, for instance, you can do an assessment and a discovery of your entire Java landscape running on VMware virtual machines, and potentially look at a view about recommendations to moving them towards container environments. So a lot of these ISVs really accelerate the modernization journey. So really have a look at a number of these if you're interested. A couple of others, I'll just choose a couple. So River Meadow, they really accelerate the migration. Again, either lift and shift or modernize. And if I use Monte Cloud as an example, they do the day two operations once you're actually in those environments. So these are ISV tools. We're adding more as time goes on. A lot of them have been out in the theatre today. Very useful tool sets. Training and certification. Moving from VMware to AWS for some organizations have been challenging. There have been VI admins that have been running VMware estates for years. Some of them don't want to change. So we're here to help them. We're here to drive them on the journey. Let's talk about the people side. So there's a number of training and certifications that are available. You can either do hands-on lab boot camps where you can work with a training partner or with AWS training and allow you to go through the Migration Essentials program. There's a bootcamp program called Migration Essentials for AWS, which includes a VMware pathway, etc. There's also on demand through our digital options. So if you've got a distributed team and you want to do our offerings there's a free Essentials one there that you can get AWS for VMware Admins course. So if you're a VMware admin, you want to understand how it maps to AWS, that's a free course you can use. And obviously once you're going down the journey of an AWS journey, you obviously can get all the certifications associated with that as well. So training and certification, we've got you covered for that. So let's talk about expert migration and support. So two areas here. So AWS professional services. So AWS professional services have been migrating VMware VMs since 2008. Have I said that before? I have said that before. This organization have built specific runbooks to do hyper rapid automation. They work on very large complex migrations. I'll give an example. There's a few customer examples there. So Danske Bank's referenceable, very large bank in Denmark. They migrated over around 18,000 virtual machines, fully running on VMware, to AWS, EC2, and other modern construct migrations to RDS and things like that. Using hyper-automation 50% faster than they originally anticipated with the CIO, because they built hyper-automation around doing that migration from VMware to AWS. So the AWS Professional Services have been doing this for a long time. The other area is our migration competency partners, and there's some really good financial opportunities here to work with our partners on this one. We have hundreds globally of VMware migration competency partners. So these are partners that are skilled in VMware, skilled in AWS, skilled in modernization. They're all part of the migration competency program. They're all certified to be part of that. And while they're also certified to be part of that program, they're also part of our MAP program as well, our Migration Acceleration Program, and I'll cover something on that one. This is really critical for financial incentives to help you migrate your VMware workloads over to AWS. So let's talk about assessment and programs. If there's one thing that you go away with today, it's an OLA. An OLA, the optimization licensing assessment, is really, really critical to understand the size of the prize and what the assessment is. So this is a free of charge assessment that we provide that will be assessed through a partner to allow you to understand exactly how your VMware estate is running. How many VMs have you got? What operating systems are you running? What's the peak usage? What storage am I using? What memory am I using? Down to the application level if you really want that. OLA gives you a directional business case to go back to your organization and say, this is the potential prize that we've got here. We could go to EC2, remove the VMware license stack, and move over to EC2. So again, if there's one thing, take away from this, do an OLA. Contact us, and this is how you contact us. Take a photograph of this one. This is the QR code for requesting an OLA. So once you're there, fill in your data, fill in your information. We'll be all happy to come and help you assess your environment. Okay, coming to the end now. Let's talk about MAP. MAP is our global commercial and methodology framework for doing migrations. It's been around a while, it's really, really well developed. I just want to educate you on what MAP looks like. So if you think about what those three phases are, as we put it, assess, so building the business case. So we talked about the OLA. The OLA is quick, you can get an answer pretty quickly, but you might want to go deeper. You might want to get cloud economics involved. You might want to really understand, is your employee base capable of moving to AWS? Is there a massive skills gap there? We analyze the people process part of it. That's called an MRA, the Migration Readiness Assessment. You may want to go deeper and do a TCO report. Again, the next level of getting funding for doing your migration. That's what the MAP assess phase is for. Our partners do this with you. We give funding to the partners to allow them to go through all this consultative work. It's really, really critical. Once you're into the mobilize phase is getting down to that next level of technical detail and planning around building your landing zone and building your environment ready to move, to make that move. Again, our MAP partners, our migration competency partners, are incentivized in this piece to reduce the professional services cost, if not eliminate the professional services cost, for you to do your VMware to EC2 or modernization play. And final phase is the is the execution phase, the actual execution of the migration. So this is how we accelerate. This is our global framework for both commercially and methodology-wise. So I want to say thank you for everybody for turning up to this session. I'll be around for a little while to have a conversation if you want to talk to me. But I just want to kind of summarize on this. Assess your environment, run that OLA. If you get to map and you want to do map, it's like that 1-2 punch, OLA and map. Once you're through, then you're starting to see where you can really be. Decide on what's the best strategy. Your strategy may be to go to EVS. Your strategy may be to go a bit of EVS and a bit of EC2. It may be to go to Nutanix. It may be to go to ROSA. It may be to go and start yourself on that journey of moving from monolithic applications over to microservices. We'll help you get there. Your map competency migration partners will help you get there. It's all about building that plan for you. Leverage those partners, leverage those services, and utilize all the cash available that AWS have to get you to AWS, to get you off-prem and get you moving to all the potential avenues you may have. So, that's the end of my piece today. I know it's at the end of the day. I really appreciate you all being here. If you wouldn't mind scanning the last QR code and rating me, obviously we recommend any feedback that you have for us. I really appreciate you guys being here so late on in the day. And yeah, thank you ever so much for everybody. Take care.